What's going on? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. We're back, drafted playoff best ball. The regular season's over. Hopefully you all did well. I was pretty mediocre to say the least. I had two finals teams in the big board. Could have had a legit shot at 5 in the big board, but CeeDee Lamb, that 1 yard tackle right before he went in the end zone, that kind of killed it. And Jake Ferguson was another one there. But either way, I had 2 and then 1 in the poodle. So 3 total teams in the final. Not exactly the showing that I wanted. I had 28 advance in Best Ball Mania, 1 to the semis. So that really hurt. But hopefully you guys had a good season. Randall in the chat looks like he had a tough season, obviously. That's fair. Play to your budget is what I always say. And, there's tons of tournaments. If you do want to continue playing, there's tons of tournaments on Best Ball. You don't have to play $25 an entry, Best Ball Mania, that sort of a thing. There's $3 entries, play to your budget. And, you can't go wrong. It can be a tough game. It's a very, very, very difficult game to solve. But we're doing our best here. So yeah, like I said in the intro there a little bit, a lot has changed. I've been gone for a little while. Not a lot has changed. A lot has changed in my personal life. Got married, moved, bought a house. I got some new lights for the podcast. So there's some changes happening. Finally got the rest of the background going. So we're fully back. We'll be doing a few, maybe a week or two of best ball drafting before the playoffs start. And then we're off until the big board, end of January, early February, and we'll be drafting big boards again. That's by a fair margin my best tournament, the big board. So I'm really excited to get that one going again in about a month's time, roughly. And I might do this year, this off season, do some, I don't know what you want to call it, but watch film on stream, maybe. If there's an appetite for it, let me know. That's kind of what I'll be doing between, now essentially and the NFL draft. And the opening of the big board is just grinding tape, watching all these rookie prospects. It's almost halftime in the Penn State, Boise State game. There's a lot to watch in there, but we'll see. Another story for another day. But today we're talking playoff best ball. And I want to start with a few things. It's going to be pretty in-depth, but let's dig in. Putt Daddy, what's happening, my guy? Welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. We're like I said, we'll be streaming for about a week or two, basically until the playoff best ball starts. And then we'll kind of take it from there. We'll be done till the big board, but then all summer, like always. So pretty excited to be back. But let's get into this. Let's get into the playoff best ball talk. So this is going to work like kind of a beginner's tutorial a little bit. We're definitely going to do rip a couple drafts for sure on stream here. But I want to talk about just the landscape first. So the Chiefs, obviously we see here, they're locked up, number 1 seed. 15-1. They're the number 1 seed. You can plan accordingly when you're drafting. You have to draft 2 quarterbacks if you're drafting Chiefs, right? Bills are locked in the 2 seed. So there you go. You can draft Josh Allen, stack the Bills, that sort of a thing. And we'll dig more into that in a second here. But the couple changes that we could see that I want to dig into. The Ravens, all they have to do is win on Saturday. They kind of have to win that game. So it's not that they have to. If the Steelers win, then the Ravens lose. The Steelers are the 3 seed. Obviously, the Ravens are going to want to stay here as the 3 seed, win the division, have home field advantage, all that sort of stuff. So they're going to want to just get it over with, and they'll hopefully have that extra day of rest if they get the win on Saturday. So go ahead, beat the Browns, get the win, be the 3 seed. That's what I fully expect to happen. So I'm drafting the Ravens like they're the 3 seed. Texans are locked in at the 4. That's obviously the most desirable matchup. So the 5 seed. So teams are going to be playing to be the 5 seed. Now, the Steelers play the Bengals on Saturday as well. Same with the Ravens Browns. It's an AFC North Saturday, right? So the Bengals have to win that game. Look behind you, big Bengals fan. I think they do get that win. I think they go into Pittsburgh and they beat the Steelers. They're obviously slumping. They have to win that game to have a shot at the playoffs. I expect the Bengals to win that game. Then what happens? The Steelers stay here only if the Chargers lose. Chargers play the Raiders. I expect the Chargers to go out and try to win that game. I expect Jim Harbaugh to get the boys ready. They got to win that game, especially if the Steelers lose. If the Steelers lose on Saturday, then the Chargers are highly motivated to win that game on Sunday and play the Texans instead of the Ravens, right? So that's the most desirable matchup for sure. The Broncos sitting there in the 7th seed right now, winning their in against the Chiefs, who will be resting everybody. If I'm being honest, I expect the Broncos to win that game at home and get into the playoffs as the 7th seed. Not only do the Bengals need the Broncos to lose, but they also need the Dolphins to lose against the Jets, which I wouldn't be shocked if we see Tyrod Taylor playing quarterback for the Jets, this weekend. So it's not, even if the Broncos lose, the Bengals aren't guaranteed to be in the playoffs. And a lot of people right now are drafting the Bengals as their sneaky get in, sort of a team, which I get because obviously they're a superior team to both the Dolphins and the Broncos, if we're being honest. And you could even throw the Chargers in that conversation. It's just, it is what it is. Tough season. They didn't make the playoffs. It doesn't really matter. But I do expect the Broncos to win this game and get in there. I expect the Chargers, the way I'm looking at this, the way that I'm drafting right now, the way that I'm planning is the Chargers to be the 5th seed, the Steelers to be the 6th seed, and the Broncos to be the 7th seed. Broncos play the Bills. So I have sprinkled in some one-offs advancement pieces, of the Broncos, Cortland Sutton, mostly, pretty much it, Cortland Sutton, right? And then the Steelers play the Ravens. I expect the Ravens to get that win. But again, George Pickens, if I'm in a super pinch, I have drafted Najee, but I'd really rather not against a tough run defense. So it's basically George Pickens as an advancement piece. And then, we can kind of take it from there. And it depends on who you're drafting. So there you go. That's what the AFC looks like. We're going to dig more into the player takes and kind of how to stack, where to go, where to look in a second here. But let's dig into the NFC. So a little more convoluted. The Eagles are the 2 seed. They're locked in as the 2 seed. Okay. That's wonderful. You can draft, Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and you can plan to be playing them. Saquon Barkley, obviously, you can plan to be playing them in the wild card weekend, which is great. That's great to plan for. Then the Rams, they are not locked into the 3 seed at all. So they're going to be pretty motivated. It's the opposite of the AFC, right? So the Rams are going to be pretty motivated to stay as the number 3 seed, right? Who do they play? I got the games pulled up here. Rams play Seahawks at home. So that's a tough game if we're being honest with ourselves. But they're highly motivated to get that win because the Bucs have to win regardless. The Bucs just have to win. Win, you're in, it's over, it's done. You win the NFC South. So there's really no need to muck about. Obviously, they're playing at home. It's the Saints. It's a very, very winnable game. I expect the Bucs to get that win for sure and win the division and be a playoff team. And I'm drafting them as such. I have not drafted any Atlanta Falcons. So there you go, if that says anything. But the Rams are going to be very, very, very motivated to win that game. Because you don't want to be playing the Vikings or the Lions, right? Obviously, everybody knows it. Week 18, it comes down to that. Lions and the Vikings. It doesn't even matter what happened in that 49ers-Lions game. It didn't matter if the Lions lost that game, which was crazy that, can you imagine if Jahmyr Gibbs had gotten hurt late in that game, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, Laporta, even Jameson, any of those players, if anyone got hurt late in that game last night, it would have been a disaster for Dan Campbell as far as the media is concerned. He would have been chewed up and spit out. Luckily, it didn't happen. It is what it is. They got the win, but it really didn't matter. So Lions, Vikings for the division and the number 1 seed, right? Then the loser goes down to the 5th seed and plays the 4 seed Bucs or Rams. So obviously, if you're, the Bucs, you want to be the 3 seed. If you're the Rams, you want to be the 3 seed. Regardless, it's going to be kind of a tough out because, Commanders are no easy, It's not an easy matchup, that's for sure. They're rolling right now. They're playing very, very well. They had a late bye week too, which helps. And then the Packers are there. They're in as well. Tough matchups. The toughest matchup is obviously the Eagles. So you really would like to avoid being the 7 seed, but you might not have, a choice essentially, right? So Commanders play the Cowboys on the road in Dallas in week 18. And the Packers play the Bears at home, or is it on the road? At home. Packers play the Bears at home. So the Packers got to win. That's a morning game. The where is it? The geez, who am I looking for? Commanders. It's both a morning game. Okay, so basically, just handle your business. Essentially, is what I'm doing. Just handle your business if you're the Packers, try to get the win through. You're the Commanders, but the Cowboys are going to be pretty motivated to get that win. They just dropped Ezekiel Elliott today, which means nothing. McCarthy is kind of figuring out if he wants to stay as the head coach. CeeDee Lamb is going to be out. So it's really interesting. It might end up just staying as is, which means for me personally, I need to be drafting more Commanders. That's for sure. I have not taken enough Washington Commanders, and I like that matchup, whether it's the Bucks or the Rams. I don't really care. Whoever the 6th seed is in the NFC, I really, really, really like that team, and I've been drafting the Packers like they are going to be, that team. And it looks like it might not be. So I need to pivot, and from now until the start of the playoffs, I need to be drafting a lot more Commanders personally. Putt Daddy, I was pissed that the Lions didn't sit their starters, cost me dollars for my BBM finals team. That sucks, man. Yeah, that made a lot of people money and lost a lot of people money for sure. It made me a little bit of money with Jameer Gibbs, if I'm being honest. I had a lot of, if you watch the show, which you did all summer, I was drafting. That was my number one game, Detroit versus San Francisco. That was my number one game to focus on when drafting all summer, and turned out it was a game you needed. At least pieces of. Too many teams with lines moved right up the board. Yeah, 100%. Like I said, me too, with my big board teams, my poodle team that I made the finals with, that shot up the board. That actually ended up being my highest scoring, team in the finals was my poodle team. But either way, it is what it is. That's unfortunate, but it's how she goes. That's best ball for you. So let's dig in. Let's get into Underdog. We can get rid of these 2 screens. Let's do some full screen action. Okay, so let's take a look at the rankings. I want to start this off actually with, first and foremost, I have 3 rules. 3 rules when it comes to drafting playoff best ball teams. 3 rules. Number 1, roster construction. Number 2, roster construction. And number 3, roster construction. That is all that matters. That's it. That's all that matters. ADP doesn't matter. Nothing else matters except for your roster construction. That's it. It's the most kind of beatable game that we have in best ball. It's just how you construct your team, and if you're kind of right or not. Like, realistically, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to, get certain matchups right and certain winners right, that sort of a thing. Basically, you got to get to the AFC and NFC championship games, and then you have to have a Super Bowl team. So we all know the structure. At least I hope you do. If you don't, throw questions in the chat, whatever. We need 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, wide receiver or tight end, and a flex. That's what you need. Therefore, you need 5 players: quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. You need 5 players to be in the Super Bowl. No matter what you do, no matter the players you draft, the teams you draft, no matter what happens, you have to make sure that you have at least 1 option with 5 players in the Super Bowl. So let's look at where the ADPs are at right now. Josh Allen, number 1. He should be number 1. I'm picking Josh Allen every single time I'm first overall. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. He's shot up boards. So early, and I can show you some examples. We can take a look at some teams that I have. Early, Lamar Jackson was going, at the 1-2 turn, somewhere down here, right? Where Patrick Mahomes is going essentially. And that was a huge advantage, I thought. So I tried to draft as many as I could, getting Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the same team. And I have a fair amount of it, which I'm super happy about. Jalen Hurts has moved up, especially now that he's playing wild card weekend. So these three quarterbacks, the reason that they're 1, 2, 3, right, is because all three of these teams have a very viable chance at making the Super Bowl. I'm not sure what the odds are. We can look at it if you'd like. But Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, Philadelphia Eagles all have a very viable shot to get to the Super Bowl. Plus, you're going to get them playing in wild card weekend. So you only need to draft one quarterback. If you're drafting any one of these three, I very, very, very much think that it's a huge roster construction, roster mistake drafting more than one quarterback if you have any of these top three quarterbacks. I see a lot where people will draft Josh Allen with the number 1 pick, Lamar Jackson with number 2, whatever it is, and then they'll take Jared Goff or Patrick Mahomes. That just makes no sense. It really, really doesn't. You kind of have to buy in that they're going to make the Super Bowl, right? You can, if you're only building a few teams, then go nuts. Do something like that, or the higher dollar value. I guess you can make an argument that you could do that. But I personally do not. So just that's my 2 cents on that. That's all I'm going to do. Right now it's interesting, and it's going to stay interesting until that Vikings Lions game on this coming weekend, right? We have no idea who the number 1 seed is going to be in the NFC. It's up in the air. It's very 50-50. I think that Detroit's going to win that game, but I'm not going to be drafting like that yet. I have drafted a few in the gauntlet, certainly the $5 mittens. I'm definitely mixing in a lot of 1 QB builds with both Goff and Darnold, right? So I know that those teams are going to be dead. One of those sides is going to be completely dead, and I know that. I'm not drafting any high, dollar value tournaments, $100, $500 certainly. I'm not drafting any of those tournaments, and picking a single Detroit or Minnesota quarterback. I'm just not doing that, and I'm going to save some bullets until after that game is completed, so that I have all the information. So one mistake that I kind of see is that no one has, a lot of times guys don't have a plan. So yes, your first pick can decide the way the rest of your draft kind of goes, but you need to have a plan beyond that. Realistically, you should be thinking 2-3 picks ahead, right? So the biggest mistake that I see right now, in my opinion, I'm okay with Jahmyr Gibbs moving ahead of Barkley, but Derrick Henry for sure should be ahead of probably both of these running backs. Now, why do I say that? I say that because it's easier to stack up the NFC side with a player, Derrick Henry, that plays in the wild card weekend. And I think we can all agree he's a very, very good running back option, right? Regardless of who they're playing. If they're playing the Steelers, I don't really care. If they're playing the Chargers, perfect. He's a very good option. Gibbs might be sitting out in the wild card weekend. They might have the number 1 seed, right? Barkley is playing, but the problem I have with Barkley is, who are you bringing it back with unless you can get Patrick Mahomes? That's all that makes sense. So anytime I see someone draft Barkley, in my head, I'm thinking, you better draft Patrick Mahomes. You kind of have to. Why? Because in my opinion, and again, we could differ, but in my opinion, there's only 3 teams in the NFC that have a viable chance at making the Super Bowl. 3: Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, and the Kansas City Chiefs. If you think that the Chargers, the Steelers, the Texans, the Broncos, whoever, if you think that they can make the Super Bowl, then good on you. Draft accordingly. If it does happen, you'll be right, and you'll be very right, and I will be very wrong, because I'm drafting none of those teams, at least not with the quarterback. I'm not expecting them to make the Super Bowl, right? And then on the NFC side, right, in my opinion, on the NFC side, there are 4 teams that have a viable, realistic chance at making the Super Bowl. And I might start to think a little bit more about the Commanders getting put into that a little bit. Again, I have to draft more Commanders, and I will, because if they end up as the number 6 seed, then there's a really good chance, especially if the Lions are limping, it'll be a tough game on the road. But I would not hate the chances. I would like the Packers' chances a little bit better against the Lions in the second round. But I don't hate the Commanders in that game either. So I definitely need to go down that road. But the 4 teams I have in mind on the NFC side, obviously the Philadelphia Eagles, so Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, obviously Detroit, and then some options way later in the draft where you can bring these quarterbacks in cheaply and get some of the other good quality pieces, right? Minnesota and Green Bay, who Jordan Love is falling. Now you see it behind Jaden Daniels, which is a little crazy to me. But again, the matchups are going to be very, very different. So this is a big reason why I need to draft more Washington Commanders. Again, if they're playing the Rams and the Packers are playing the Eagles on the road, give me the Commanders against the Rams on the road versus the Packers against the Eagles. And again, I've already drafted a ton of Packers thinking they would end up being that number 6 seed, but it is what it is. So I need to pivot a little bit. I need to change my strategy a little bit, but there's tons of time to do just that, which I'm going to do. So again, when you're drafting Saquon Barkley, what's your plan? Especially if you're drafting him ahead of, 3rd overall. If you're sitting there at pick number 3, and you draft Saquon Barkley, what's your plan? What's your plan for your 2nd pick, your 3rd pick, right? Where are you going to go with that? So many times I see Barkley and then Gibbs, or Barkley and Amon-Ra, and then they end up with 2 Detroit, 2 Philly, and then they bring in, Love or even Goff. And then there's so many guys that are ending up with dead teams essentially because I don't think there was a plan in place, right? So we'll see how this kind of works out, but I just wanted to point that out. And then we're going to go through some examples. And a few guys that we're seeing shoot up boards: Justin Jefferson, Josh Jacobs is falling back down. Again, those Packers are falling back down. The ADP. Again, ADP means absolutely nothing in playoff best ball tournament drafting. It means absolutely nothing. Get your guys, go scroll down as far as you want, right? Obviously, you're not trying to get drafts kicked out and canceled and stuff like that, but it does not matter. Scroll down as far as you want, piece it together, draft wherever you want. Just make it make sense. Again, 3 rules. And they're all roster construction. That's it. That's all that matters. So let's look at a couple of examples. I've done a ton of drafts already. 120 drafts I've done of playoff best ball. 2 big mittens, some gauntlets, 45 gauntlets, 10 little gauntlet, 39 mittens, 11 mitten 2s, 13 little mitten 2s, right? Trying to get some reps is what I'm doing. So let's go to the gauntlet teams because I've named them all. Let's look at the early drafts where I made some mistakes. Okay. I'll show you some mistakes. So right here, obviously drafting the Seahawks like they're going to make the playoffs. They're out, they're dead. This team is still alive though, right? I mean, it's still alive, but I really did not need 4 running backs whatsoever. So that's a mistake by me for sure. So I should have not drafted Kenny Walker. I'm happy with the Bucks, right? Mike Evans and Bucky Irving. I'm happy with Detroit, especially if they get a bye, but Kenny Walker was an absolute mistake, right? So there you go. This is certainly not a mistake. It's just a full wrap. Baltimore, Minnesota makes tons of sense. I'm not sure if I want Minnesota to get the number 1 seed here though. If they do, and they're sitting out wildcard weekend, then I need the Ravens to go absolutely ballistic against whoever they're playing, right? So wouldn't call it a mistake, but there you go. This one definitely, I think you could call say there's a lot of mistakes here. But again, this was before David Montgomery was out. So it is what it is. But I definitely made some mistakes. I'm going for a Minnesota-Pittsburgh Super Bowl, which I don't see any real chance that happens. But at least, if Minnesota gets the number 1 seed, then I can at least kind of feel the full team and maybe sneak it through. We'll see. But tons of mistakes made here, right? And that was where I came across this whole Saquon Barkley theory, drafting Saquon Barkley in the two spot, right? Then David Montgomery, obviously that won't happen now. He's way down in the ADP. But what am I doing there? It makes no sense. Why would I draft Saquon Barkley and David Montgomery, 2 NFC teams? Right? That just doesn't really add up, because then I don't have anything that I think is viable on the AFC side, right? It just doesn't make sense. So if this was Gibbs, let's say that's Jahmyr Gibbs, it still doesn't make sense, right? So I've made the mistake myself, but again, it was through trial and error, drafting a ton, getting those reps in, and seeing what possibilities you can get. So that's one reason why I'm kind of fading Barkley in a lot of situations. It depends on where I'm drafting. I haven't been able to get the elusive Barkley Hurts stack. That would be nice. And then one of the wide receivers, both, but that's not likely at all. But if you could get Hurts, Barkley, and then one of the wide receivers, Brown or Smith, that would be nice. But either way, let's move on. So there's an example of making some mistakes. So these are the early drafts that I did. I don't mind this team, I suppose. No, don't really like it either, actually. I'm banking on Buffalo or Baltimore versus the Detroit Lions. So this is and Tank Dell, obviously, that was way early. So he's completely done, which is a disadvantage of drafting early, obviously. If this was, Nico Collins, then I could get behind this being a solid build for a more expensive tournament, if that makes sense. Which maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that's what I could get behind, because let's face it, the reality is, this is something I haven't mentioned yet either. The reality of these playoff best ball tournaments and the reality of the NFL playoffs, period in general, is the number 1 seeds have about just over a 50% chance of making the Super Bowl. 50%. That's a huge advantage for the number 1 seed. Obviously, that's why it's so coveted, right? So you kind of have to get into your portfolio a few of these builds where you have, even if, like, I've built a bunch where I have just 5 total players between the Chiefs and the Lions, or the Chiefs and the Vikings, that sort of a thing. But then you have to kind of waste roster spots with teams that you don't see getting there. But, Jane Daniels is a great option for the wild card weekend. But again, then you're going to have less players in the divisional round, the conference round, and then the Super Bowl potentially. So what I really like to do is a build look at this one here, right? I was able to get Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. That's nice. Mark Andrews. That's wonderful. Isaiah Likely. So I have a 4-piece on the Baltimore side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually. So if Baltimore makes the Super Bowl, I have a lineup. Wonderful. But I've also added in the Buccaneers, right, to their couple, the Detroit Lions. I got the Green Bay Packers. I've got the Rams, right? So I have a bunch of outs. So there's a few different ways you can attack these tournaments. You can do something like this, right? Baltimore, Minnesota. If this advances to the second round and Minnesota gets that bye, or if they don't, it doesn't really matter. But if this team advances to the second round, or for somehow it's a Vikings Ravens Super Bowl, this is going to be a super, super deadly lineup, considering I have Aaron Jones and Jefferson and Addison, right? And Hawkinson. I have all the pieces that you need. So if there's a Baltimore, Minnesota Super Bowl and this team makes it out of the wild card round, I might be winning the gauntlet. So there you go. Or again, you can go with something like this with the Baltimore side, right? I have all the pieces on the Baltimore side except for Bateman, but that's fine. But I have a 5-piece Baltimore Ravens, and then I have all these different options with, NFC teams. Hopefully one of them gets in there, makes the Super Bowl, and then I'm laughing, right? Same thing here. Another one. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. I got Flowers, Bateman, likely, right? So I have a 5-piece with the Baltimore Ravens, and then I've got Nakua. I've got the 2-1 potential 1 seeds, right? Which is a massive advantage to have Laporta and Addison and Aaron Jones. So for this one, I'm probably hoping that the Minnesota Vikings get the number 1 seed, and I get 2 guys on a bye week, right? And then advancement piece, Christian Watson. And that's another thing too, with these advanced pieces, you still can pick the opposite conference, right? So I'm on the AFC side here with the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, right? I need an advanced piece late in the draft. So I could go with George Pickens, McConkey at this time. You can't do that anymore, but why would I do that? I might as well go with an NFC side, especially like a big play type of player. So things like that, that's kind of the way I'm attacking these drafts. And I kind of always have this way. Let's look at this Detroit. Here we go. So here's an example of something you can do just to get that 2 number 1 seeds in the Super Bowl, right? So let's say Detroit and Kansas City are both the number 1 seed. I've got Detroit. I've got my bye week or wild card weekend quarterback, Baker Mayfield, Isaiah Pacheco as my running back in the Super Bowl, KC, Detroit, right? And then Amon-Ra, Kelsey, and Hopkins. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. If Detroit and Kansas City in the Super Bowl, I have a full lineup and they're good pieces, right? Then my advancement pieces to get me to the second round when both of these teams are playing, right? I have Baker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Super thin, super thin. And I'm going to have to be right with someone, whether that's George Pickens or Mike Evans, even Rachaad White, call it, right? Whatever it is. But obviously I have the pass catching running back. He's caught a lot more, touchdown receptions than he's ran in. Bucky Irving's kind of that guy. And I'd rather this was Bucky Irving, but this is just an example, right? So I have to be right with these 5 guys or hope that a few, which you do see as well, a few of the other teams in my pod have made some roster mistakes and they can't field the whole lineup or there's an injury, whatever. If I can sneak this team through, and then it ends up a 2 number 1 seed Super Bowl, Detroit, Kansas City, this is going to be a decent squad, right? So there's kind of what your options are looking like. I've also done a little bit of, here's another example on the KC side, right? So Kansas City, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to need 1 player from the NFC, right? Barkley, that's a solid option. Kyron Williams, sure. Justin Jefferson, very solid option. Cooper Kupp, yeah, I guess. Christian Watson, yeah, sure. That sort of a thing. So there's tons of ways to build, but the bottom line is have a plan, be ready to execute that plan, going off of where you pick, right? So let's do a draft. First and foremost, let's do a cheap $5. Let's do a $5 mitten 2. We might do a gauntlet tonight. We won't do a $100 draft. And keep in mind all of the structures, the advancement structures as well. This year, I haven't seen any 1 of 6 advance yet. It's all 2 of 6. So the gauntlet, 2 of 6, 1 of 10, 300 seat final. Mitten, 2 of 6, 110, 110. Big mitten, 2 of 6, 1-4, right? And the bigger mitten, 2 of 6, 1-4. So I don't know if they'll release any 1 of 6 tournaments, but if they do, keep an eye on it. It's a lot harder to advance out of your pod if 1 of 6 teams get through, right? Then it's basically impossible to build, a number 1 seed kind of matchup like a Detroit, Kansas City, Minnesota, that sort of a thing. But when it's 2 of 6, it's still an option. So let's do a mitten 2. Let's jump in. I'm going to draft a bunch of these. I don't have a number in mind. I don't really care. I just want to get some reps on these and do some different things. Candyman, Fantasy Football Garage. The bigger mitten is insane. Nice payout up top, though. Yeah, I might do 1 or 2. I might do 1 or 2 of those. But I will not until we know who the number 1 seed in the NFC is. It's just not worth it. Even the bigger mitten, the $100 one, I've done 2 so far, and I will max that. But I'm going to save those other 3 until we know who the number 1 seed is. It's just too risky for that kind of money. Yeah, you could end up with the quasi super team, but not really. There's really not going to be enough of a difference, in my opinion. So I'm way more happy to just wait until that game's over. So we're the number 3 pick, right? It's going to be easy. I'm picking one of these quarterbacks. I don't care who it is. I'll go off of whoever's there. Obviously, I would prefer Lamar Jackson. I have Lamar Jackson ranked 2nd behind Josh Allen, so that's who I would take. But if it's Jalen Hurts, it's Jalen Hurts, and that's who I'll take. But make it easy on myself. I'm going to have a plan from there. See Barkley in the 2. What is your plan? What is your plan from there? And let's see what he does. This is wonderful that this happened. So, I mean, it's sad for him because it's going to be a not great team. But let's see what he does. So Lamar Jackson, easy peasy, easy click. Happy to get him at the 3. And it doesn't really happen anymore. You used to be able to get Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on a lot of teams. Doesn't really happen much anymore. So I'm really happy I got a ton of it in the gauntlet. When you could still get it. I wanted to draft as many teams as possible so I could get that stack as often as I possibly could. But it is what it is. So, and it forces me to get a little bit unique too. So some differences. So who do we got? Patrick Mahomes goes 6. He's moving up boards. Makes sense. You can go with Gibbs here. Excuse me. You can go with Gibbs here. You can go with Justin Jefferson. You can go with Josh Jacobs. That's perfectly fine. P. Richardson, not a bad start. This guy, that makes sense. Justin Jefferson and Derrick Henry, that makes sense. Gibbs, I would have auto-clicked there. That would have been nice. I can go Amon-Ra. And I think I will because I don't really have enough of that. Let's go Amon-Ra. I don't love to go with wide receivers here. I would much rather take a running back on the NFC side. So like Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, but I have a ton of those builds. So this guy's probably going to go Shakir and James Cook. It's a mistake if he doesn't. So Saquon, AJ Brown. Cool. Now what are you doing? Where's your quarterback? Who's going to be your quarterback? Right? It just doesn't make sense. Like, I guess you could go with Jared Goff, but I really don't like that. Wow, interesting. So Zay Flowers, make it easy, especially because I missed out on Derrick Henry. Kind of have to go with Zay Flowers. So this guy's going to have, now he's going, all 3 Philadelphia Eagles, which sucks for this guy who should have taken an Eagle. That's the thing so a couple mistakes already. Realistically, this guy made more mistakes than this guy. This guy's at least going to have probably, I don't love it, but he got lucky with being able to get both the Eagles wide receivers to stack with Barkley. And now he's going to have to go with, I don't know, the Chargers, the Steelers, that sort of a thing, which I personally do not think is viable at all. You could go with the Chargers if you think they play the Texans, right? And then you're going to at least get 2 games out of those Chargers players. But then what happens in the Super Bowl? You're kind of boxed out. Wow, Mixon goes, wow, you started really well, P. Richardson. But that's a mistake. That makes no sense whatsoever. Goff still available. Goff is absolutely plummeting down draft boards these days. I'm going to go with Jordan Addison here. Yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. Andrews goes. That's really annoying. It's good drafting by him, though. So Toast 0420, that makes lots of sense. He's obviously going with the Minnesota side. So what am I going to end up doing at running back? It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be super pretty, but I'm going to get a little different here. I have to go Bateman because I missed out on Andrews. So I have to get more pieces of the Baltimore side. I want at least 5 pieces on the Baltimore side here for sure. And that's not even a conversation. I don't realistically have a choice. I could go with David Montgomery on this build and stack them up with a Monra. Hope they get the number 1 seed, and then I can play Addison. I can play Zay, obviously Bateman, right? Yeah, good drafting by this guy. We'll take a look at these teams after and just kind of deconstruct a few things, and then we'll rip it a couple more drafts for sure. There's tons of time. We're going to do a bunch of drafts, but we need to deconstruct a few things. So there goes Jaden Daniels. That kind of sucks. Maybe I am targeting Brian Robinson Jr. here. Wow. That really hurts me. That's who I needed, was Justice Hill for sure. Really huge reach. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to get creative. Has to be David Montgomery then. I'm basically out of options for Baltimore running backs. Not basically, I am, unless, I don't know, you want to go with Keaton Mitchell or something, which I do not. So David Montgomery it is. And then I'm going to go, I could definitely go Bucky. I don't have to take any of these wide receivers, right? Oh my God, Bucky goes. Wow. These draft rooms are shifting even from earlier today. So I'm going to just take Brian Robinson because this guy at the end of the draft is, potentially building some Washington out of that. So let's just get Brian Robinson. I have to get Likely. And that sucks. I lost that really. I'm probably going to have to go with Aguilar here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 5th with Aguilar. Maybe I don't have to go down that route. Because I'm going to bring in Cam Akers as well. And those are going to be my running backs. I'm hoping that Brian Robinson's going to get me through and advance this team. So Lamar, Brian Robinson, Zay, one of Amon-Ra or Addison, and then Bateman as well, Likely as well. Yeah, that's kind of what I have to do. I could go with Rashad White as well, but I'm just going to stick with what I have here. Did Buddy take Terry McLaurin? No, this guy took Terry McLaurin. Wow. This guy, yeah, we're going to deconstruct these teams here. There's a lot of doesn't make any lick of sense going on right now, but we'll dig into it and we'll dig into why. So I'll take Likely. 3 picks left, 2 picks left. One will be Akers and the other will be I could go with Zacchaeus here. It's only a $3 tournament. I might just do that. Let's take Akers just to get that out of the way. This doesn't really matter. I could go Hawkinson potentially. Dobbs. I won't take Tim Patrick. I won't take Hawkinson, actually. Sorry. Because I already have 2 Detroit Lions and 2 Minnesota Vikings, but neither of these running backs are realistically viable. My wide receivers are, but not my running backs. So I need Brian Robinson to advance me. And there he goes anyways. Could definitely go Jalen McMillan. Tucker Kraft, I suppose. Aguilar. I could go with Zacchaeus as well. I don't really mind that. It's $5. I have, I'll have 2 Washington, 2 Detroit, 2 Minnesota to go along with my 4-piece Baltimore Ravens. At least it's sound. Again, that's all that matters is roster construction. That's it. The reason why I don't want to take McMillan is because I don't have a Tampa Bay running back. Not that it takes him out of the picture, but if it's somehow a Tampa Bay, again, roster construction is all that matters. So if it's a Tampa Bay, Baltimore Super Bowl, that doesn't work for me. I need it to be Baltimore, Detroit, Minnesota, or Washington because those are all my running backs, obviously. So that's what I have to have it look like. So I think I'll get rid of these 2. I think I'm going with Zacchaeus. If I have to pivot, which I highly doubt anyone drafts Olamide, Zacchaeus, then it is what it is. So let's draft him. He had 2 TDs. He could advance this team, right? But let's deconstruct this squad. Let's deconstruct this sucker a little bit. Everybody's team. Because there's some mistakes for sure. Javonte Williams, wow. Hopefully this lets me stay here after the draft is over. It probably won't. Let's just wait till this guy picks. Letting it tick down, auto pick. Cool. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at this insanity that happened here. Okay, Josh Allen, Saquon. So have a plan. What's your plan if you're drafting Saquon that early, right? I don't like what this guy did. This is a prime example of why you don't do it. This is just a prime example of why you just don't pick Saquon Barkley before the 4th pick. It does not make sense. 4th, 5th, you have to kind of be able to get Patrick Mahomes. Or I guess if you want to take 2 Eagles, right, and then get Jared Goff or Darnold and go with the Minnesota, the Detroit side, I guess. But again, it's difficult to get the running backs in that situation. Gibbs is going in the 1st round most of the time, sometimes early 2nd, but Aaron Jones is kind of your only option on the Detroit side, right? So what's your plan? He ends up going Goff. Okay. Sam Laporta, wonderful. Then what does he do? Like where are you going with this? Denver? Do you think Denver makes the Super Bowl? They might not even make the playoffs, right? So this team could be completely dead already, right? If Denver doesn't make the playoffs and the Lions get the number 1 seed, this team is dead. Like I'm all for taking risk, especially with the $5 drafts for sure, but make it make sense. And this does not, right? So let's look at the Josh Allen team, right? Josh Allen, Shakir Cook, perfect. Nothing wrong with that. Happy with that. Puka Nacua, and then Isaiah Pacheco. I guess I can be okay with that with Pacheco because you have they're not playing till the AFC Championship, right? The Bills won't play the Chiefs till the AFC Championship. So I'm okay with that. Terry McLaurin, sure. Don't hate it. But where's your Buffalo side? So kind of hurting himself at the Buffalo side. Then Bucky Irving, I'm okay with that. I suppose if you'd backed it up somewhere, which you didn't. Jamar Chase, most likely he doesn't make the playoffs. Pretty poor pick. Joe Burrow, complete waste of a pick with Josh Allen. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm actually okay with that pick, especially with the last pick in the whole entire draft. That makes sense. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that don't correlate whatsoever, right? So Buffalo, 1, 2, 3 versus who? You don't have a full lineup. So this is a just poorly constructed team, right? Doesn't make any sense. And that's badge, red badge, no badge. So neither of these teams make sense. Like I always say, badges don't mean shit. But these are just two very poorly constructed teams. I don't like my team at all. I think it's terrible, and I probably don't advance. I probably don't win any money with this team, but at least it's properly constructed, right? I have 4-piece on the Baltimore side and then 2 bringbacks for Detroit, Minnesota, and Washington. If it's Baltimore, Detroit, Baltimore, Minnesota, Baltimore, Washington, I have 6 players in the Super Bowl, right? You only need 5. So at least it makes sense. Jalen Hurts, Gibbs, Jameson Williams, okay, you better be done with Detroit now, and you better hope they get the number 1 seed. I mean, if they don't, then you're probably going to advance, but you want, to go far and to win this tournament sort of thing, you want Detroit to get the number 1 seed. Xavier Worthy, okay. Kyron Williams doesn't make tons of sense. Now you have 3 teams in the NFC, right? Does not make any sense. So again, instead of Jahmyr Gibbs, this guy had to go with AJ Brown. Had to. You really don't have a choice. You really don't. That's one reason I don't love drafting Eagles a ton, because you don't have any choice. You have to get as many of them as you can because there are only so many. The wide receiver 3 for the Philadelphia Eagles has gone 3 straight weeks without a catch. So you have to get, if you can get Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith, which a lot of people do have, you have to do it. If you can somehow get Hurts with Saquon and then get one of these 2 wide receivers, wonderful. But this is already a tough looking squad. So what can he do for the Super Bowl? Nothing. Horribly constructed roster again. So 3 of the 4 teams so far, horribly constructed, terrible looking teams, right? Will they advance? Most likely, but they're probably dead after that. Toast 0420, I think he did a great job, but let's dig through it. Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, love that. Got Aaron Jones, awesome. Mark Andrews makes tons of sense. Sam Darnold, did you get any more Minnesota? You really, you got to, in my opinion, even if it's the number 1 seed team, Kansas City, Detroit, or Minnesota, right? You have to go with 4. I know it's tough to advance, but what are we playing for here? Are we playing to advance a $5 team and win $10 or whatever it is? Or are we trying to win the tournament? Like for me, I'm trying to win the tournament. And it depends on how much volume you're doing and all of that. I get it. So don't let me dissuade you from what you're doing. But that's just the way I look at it. So this guy's boxed himself in. It's not a poorly constructed team, and he can go Baltimore, Minnesota Super Bowl. So that's perfectly fine. But it's also the Chargers. So he also has the AFC side. He's got Baltimore and LA Chargers with Minnesota. He's obviously hoping that Minnesota gets the number 1 seed. That's absolutely in his best interest, is that Minnesota gets the number 1 seed. And then, the Chargers kind of blow out, the Texans, and the Ravens play the Steelers, right? So this is fine. It's not, I would have liked to have gotten one more Minnesota piece, the TJ Hawkinson side right here. Yeah, I would have done that. But I guess this guy might go with Justin Herbert, whatever. But I would have gotten TJ Hawkinson in this build personally. Let's look at the last pick, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Jacobs. I like that a lot. That's a quality start. But then he kind of, screwed the pooch after that. Joe Mixon makes no sense. You have to go with an NFC side. I'm sure he would have went Aaron Jones instead. But then if that's the case, then go Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, right? Travis Kelce, Jordan Addison, right? Xavier Worthy, Jordan Addison, something like that. I would have been happier if he took Kyron, right? Isaiah Pacheco, something like that. Joe Mixon makes no sense. in this build when you're obviously you have to go with the Kansas City side on the AFC, right? So why would you be picking another AFC team? Doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Then Travis Kelce, Jaden Daniels, okay, I'm okay with that. You need a quarterback to advance. Justice Hill, 0 cents. Another AFC running back? That makes no sense whatsoever in any world you live in. Same with Amari Cooper. No sense whatsoever. So what are we doing? Najee Harris, another oh man. Like this is a prime example of what not to do, guys. So that's why I wanted to do this episode. That was a big reason why I wanted to do this kind of beginner style episode, talking through some strategies, because the mistakes that I see are just unnecessary. And you know, I'm hoping that at least people that watch this show, people that watch me, at least, you know, draft accordingly and just make it make sense. Roster construction is all that matters. Guys, roster construction is the only thing that matters in playoff best ball. The only thing that matters. Okay. So again, my team, yes, it is structurally sound. It does make sense. It does add up. This guy's team, perfectly fine with, especially if you're planning, you know, you're hoping that Minnesota gets the #1 seed. This team, this build, this construction does make sense. It's not exactly what I would have done, but that's okay. Right. So 2 of 6 teams have some kind of a shot to win substantial amounts of money. None of these other 4 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, none of them have any opportunity whatsoever to win this tournament. Period. End of story. They do not. There's no arguing that. There's no conversation there. They do not have a chance to win the tournament. Period. End of story. So that's the way I want to build. I want to build to win the tournament, especially in these $5 mittens, right? Let's do another one. Let's do another $5. Maybe we'll finish it off with a gauntlet. So if you have any questions or anything like that, fire them in the chat. Any suggestions, any concerns, anything, fire it in the chat. Let me know. So we've got it filled. No one that I know, a couple red badges. This guy's got the helmet. Let's see what happens in this draft on the 4 spot. So right off the hop, where am I going? If there's a quarterback, I'm taking a quarterback. I don't really care. I'll take any of those 3 quarterbacks, right? Do I have to take a quarterback with this number 4 pick? Do I have to bring up Patrick Mahomes? No, I do not. And I'll show you kind of one way that I do it. It won't be Barkley either. I won't be picking Saquon Barkley. I just don't like the chances of Patrick Mahomes getting to me at the 9 pick anymore. It used to be like that. That used to be fine. But I'm only picking Barkley if I'm taking a shot at the 5, certainly on the 6-7 turn. If Barkley's there at 6 and Mahomes is there, I'll take that every single time. But I'm the 4 pick, so we'll see. But it's going to be either Jahmyr Gibbs or Derrick Henry. Why Jahmyr Gibbs? Because then I can bring in Goff. I can easily bring in Goff or Mahomes, either one. So pick your kind of poison, right? If this guy takes Hurts, like who do we want me to take? I can take Henry. I can take Gibbs. I don't particularly care. Maybe we'll take Gibbs because I have a lot of Henry builds. So let's try to get a little bit different. Unless he doesn't take Hurts. If he doesn't take Hurts, I'll take him. If he does, I'll take Gibbs. And then we have to keep it in the back of our head that maybe the Detroit Lions get the #1 seed, right? So let's go Gibbs. And let's give an example. This is a great example of why it's Gibbs over Barkley every time for me personally. I think Gibbs will move ahead of Barkley and probably Derrick Henry too. So there goes Barkley. That's not a bad place to take him because chances are somewhat, high that you could end up with Patrick Mahomes on the other side. So he goes Derrick Henry and Patrick Mahomes. I would have went Derrick Henry and Goff personally, but we'll see how he finishes it up. So this guy goes Barkley. Then what? Goff? you know, it doesn't really make sense. Barkley and then AJ Brown, cool. So now in this case, I'm going to take a huge risk. It shouldn't be a huge risk, but it is in these $5 ones especially. But I'm going to take Amon-Ra, right? And then hope that these guys know what they're doing enough to not take Jared Goff, because it doesn't make any sense to take him, right? We'll see. And then I end up with 3 very quality pieces of the Detroit Lions. So we'll see. But then I have to take him at 16, which is perfectly fine. It's, you know, an ADP value, but we're going to see. So there we go. That sucks. It is what it is. Now I'm going to have to pivot to somewhere I don't want to go, which is fine. It is what it is. And I'm going to get a little creative here. I'm going to get a little bit creative. So this guy needs a quarterback, right? I need a quarterback. We both have NFC. So that's where the problems can come in. We're going to deconstruct this one too, because that doesn't make any sense what that guy just did. So essentially the way I'm looking at this now is I can either go Green Bay or Minnesota. I'm going to go with Minnesota. You might think that doesn't make tons of sense, and it may not actually, but I'm guaranteeing myself a running back. One of these 2 running backs will play wildcard weekend for sure, right? So we'll see what I end up doing. We'll have to see it play out. These rooms are getting a little crazy. And you might think I'm going to go with Sam Darnold here, but it's not. I'm going to be going with Jordan Addison here. Because if someone takes Sam Darnold on this side of the draft, right, on this side of my pick, then I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell people. Then I'm just going to try to advance this, I guess, or, you know, whatever. Probably build out Chargers if I have to, or if this guy takes Darnold, but that makes no sense for what he's already done. Maybe it does. Maybe it could be okay if he takes Darnold here, but I wouldn't personally. Okay, so we're going Jordan Addison. Then I've got Detroit, Minnesota. So I have the number 1 seed and I have the number 5 seed, right? So the number 5 seed is going to be a very desirable spot too, right? They're playing either the Rams or the Bucks. I'm not really concerned with either of those teams. I think Detroit or Minnesota beat either of those teams. So I'm happy to have that. Now you could say I have to look at the AFC side for my quarterback, which I've already told you I'm not doing. But then I have to build out, you know, some AFC advancement pieces, right? So that kind of does limit me. Buffalo, Baltimore, right? Which is fine because I can get those secondary running back options. I can get Justice Hill. I can get Ty Johnson. I can get Ray Davis, right? And I do have to take Darnold here just in case this guy does something crazy. So we'll talk about that, guys, after the draft. We'll deconstruct these teams again, and then we'll do one more draft. So hopefully you guys are getting some value to this. Hit that like button for me. Welcome back to the stream. Happy to be back. I'm going to do a bunch of these before the playoffs, because I'm going to be doing a fair amount of drafts personally. So we'll see where it lands. So Worthy's there, and I'd really like to have Xavier Worthy, but I already have 2 players sitting out. So I kind of have to go Buffalo and Baltimore. But let's take Darnold, because just in case I don't want this guy to take him. You never know. So let's go with Darnold. 1, 2, 3. 3 Minnesota side. So since this is only a $5 mitten 2, I might just gamble that the Detroit Lions get the number 1 seed. If it was even a gauntlet or a $100 draft, I definitely would not gamble on that at this stage. But with this, I might just take that gamble. So what do I want to do? Kind of out of options on the AFC side, except for Kansas City Chiefs, and I'll have to take, I think, one. I'll take Pacheco. And then I can't take any more Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm done at running back. So this is obviously Pacheco's number one seed. He's sitting out. That's fine. I have to gamble that the Detroit Lions get the number one seed, right? So right now I have 1, 2, 3 players playing in the wild card. 4 more picks. I need at least 2 more. I'm done at running back. I could take another quarterback, but I'm just going to gamble that I'm willing to do in these $5 drafts. If you're not, that's fine. But I'm willing to gamble. But give me Putt Daddy, I see your question there. Give me a sec. Before I answer that. I'm going to go with Isaiah Likely. If I'm gambling that Minnesota does not get the number one seed and they go to the Super Bowl, then I can take one more Chief, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. Then I'll have 6. I'll have 4 players sitting out, right? Hopefully Gibbs and Amon-Ra with Pacheco and now Nuke Hopkins. Those 4 are sitting out wildcard weekend. Now the Minnesota Vikings have to be playing. If they don't, this team's dead, and that's fine. You got to have a little bit of, you got to play volume if you're doing stuff like this, which I do and I am. So that's I'm fully prepared that this team is completely dead. But if it gets through, right? If the Vikings are the number 5 seed, then I'm very happy with this build. Then I'm going to go Likely. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't really love this team at all, but I'm going to make sure it's structurally sound. 2 more picks. That means I have to take another Baltimore Raven. So I will take Justice Hill if I have to. And then an advanced piece on the AFC side. Actually, it doesn't really matter in this instance if I take an NFC or an AFC advancement piece. In this example right here, it really doesn't matter. But I will take Justice Hill to pair up with Likely and then give me another out with my Minnesota side. So with my Minnesota versus Baltimore, Super Bowl matchup. Unless he goes, which he does. Okay. So then I have to go, I guess, Aguilar. You can go with Devontae Walker if you choose. But I'm going to take Mike Evans here as an advanced piece. It really doesn't matter if it's in this instance because I missed out on Baltimore. So let's take Mike Evans, and then we'll finish it off with Aguilar because I have the Minnesota running back. So I have a Minnesota piece in the final for my running back position, right? And then I'm relying on my wide receivers to be there for the Super Bowl. So this is like the worst case scenario, and why another example, and we'll get there in a second. I'll actually just deconstruct this whole thing again. So I'll deconstruct this whole thing again because these are very, very, very good examples in my opinion. Putt Daddy, will I be doing player previews before the big board gets started? That's a good, I was thinking maybe of doing like tape watching kind of streams, but that might not be very good content. So I don't think I will. Maybe I'll do, I don't know, like top 10. I've done that in the past where I've ranked my top 10 prospects, and talked about them, talked about their, senior bowls and their bowl games. I haven't dug into tape at all yet. I've put together my list, which I can show you right now if you want. Let's pull it up just to take a peek at my process. This is a little bit of my process and the work that I put in to be ready. Let's move this over here. Doesn't want to move. Okay. So this is my spreadsheet that I build. So this is this year's. This is last year's. So didn't do much for notes on my QBs, but there's my QB rankings last year. I think they're pretty good, pretty accurate. I probably would have put maybe Penix over McCarthy. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. I think those are pretty good rankings. Then my running backs, I take notes on everybody. Do I like them? I typically rank them. I didn't with my running backs. My wide receivers, I ranked, take notes, all that kind of stuff. And then here's this year's. So these are all players that have declared so far. There's going to be some that haven't yet, but I haven't watched tape yet. Some haven't declared yet, especially running backs. The two Penn State running backs that are playing tonight have not declared, have not decided. I kind of hope they both do come out, and then that'll give Drew Allar a better, the team's going to have to rely on Drew Allar a lot more next year, which I want to see. And then wide receivers, these are the guys who've, committed, declared, that sort of thing. So I'll probably do something like that, Putt Daddy, and show maybe my rankings, some notes. I'll talk about some notes that I have on guys, because I do, honestly, I really do think that that's a huge advantage that I have, because I put in the work, that I've done well in the big board multiple years, because I think it's because I put the work in. I watch the tape, I rank guys, I know who I'm looking at, and I go through team needs. I take a look at every NFL roster and figure out who's getting cut, who's going to be on what team. I take a look at team needs. I go through all of that, every single NFL team, all 32. I figure out what I think they're going to pick in the draft, how high of a priority it is. So if they're taking a second round wide receiver, who do I think they can take? Who are they scouting? Right? All this kind of stuff is, things that go into my process. It's a little aggressive to a lot of people, but it gives me an edge, I think. So there you go. Definitely, Dennis. Welcome to the chat. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts on drafting Keaton Mitchell as a late round running back? I mean, if you really want to in a pinch, I'm not really doing it. Justice Hill has shown that he's a reliable, piece in that offense. And Keaton Mitchell hasn't been able to get healthy yet. So, I mean, if you really need to or want to in a pinch, go nuts, but it's fairly easy. I mean, it's a little more difficult now, especially to get Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But it should be definitely doable to get Lamar Jackson and Justice Hill. Again, in a pinch, if you really need to or want to. And to be honest, it's not entirely, insane. It's not crazy. Like, maybe I should have taken Keaton Mitchell in that previous draft that we did with Lamar Jackson, where I didn't get either of those running backs, right? Maybe that is a piece. Plus, you never know. He gets healthy for the Super Bowl, and it's a gadget play sort of thing. He goes off for a 30-yard touchdown or something like that. That could win you the entire tournament. So you could definitely do worse. I'm not particularly, just because Keaton Mitchell hasn't gotten healthy yet is my biggest problem there. He's coming off that torn ACL from last year. He hasn't been able to get over the hump yet in the regular season. So I'm not about to, hinge my playoff drafts on Keaton Mitchell personally. That's my opinion there. But I couldn't fault you if you do. I really, really couldn't. And again, that last draft I did, the first one, prime example of where I maybe should have taken Keaton Mitchell, but I digress. So let's break down these teams. Let's talk about some mistakes. And the biggest thing I want to talk about is my mistake, right? I wanted to show you, I wanted to make a mistake. I kind of wanted it to work out like this, where I'm not happy with this team. I actually hate it. It is still structurally sound, right? But it's a prime example of why Derrick Henry should be the number 4 pick every single time, in my opinion. Because if I take Gibbs, right, or Saquon, right, and this exact same thing plays out, right, who do I go to as my quarterback? Right? There's really no options. So I ended up still going on the NFC side and just piecing it together and making it work, but it's really not optimal. And then you kind of have to buy in on getting just one quarterback in this NFC side that's undetermined yet so far, right? We don't know who the number 1 seed is, whether that's Minnesota or Detroit. Obviously, this entire team hinges on Minnesota not getting the number 1 seed and Detroit being the number 1 seed, having the bye, right? The whole team relies on that. Otherwise, it's completely dead out of the gate. So if I had done Derrick Henry, right here at the 4 spot, and typically, let's say I go with Goff here if I have to, but even if I don't, let's say I went with Amon-Ra, right? I go Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. Then typically Jared Goff is going to be available for me there at the 16 pick, right? If he's not, then I can do exactly what I just did in this draft, right? So let's say this is Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, Sam Darnold. I would not be picking Pacheco. I would be picking any sort of Baltimore Raven, which there was none. So who knows how that would have changed things, right? I would have taken, where did Mark Andrews go? Right there. Maybe I would have taken Mark Andrews there. Depends. Because then this side of the draft is then less likely to take Jordan Addison on me, because that's NFC teams for the most part, right? So yeah, if this is Derrick Henry, then I can do exactly what I did and be feeling a lot better about it, right? Whereas if it's Gibbs, if it's Barkley, you kind of have to get Patrick Mahomes, unless, Jared Goff falls to you at the 16 pick, right? Because it really doesn't make sense anymore at all. The last draft we did, Jared Goff went, 4th round, something like that, 4th or 5th round, right? This draft, for some reason, Josh Allen drafter takes Jared Goff. So let's break down the teams here. So Josh Allen, first overall, great pick, wonderful. Jared Goff makes no sense. Then Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. Okay, you're making it work for you, but why did you pick Josh Allen first then? Why didn't you just take Derrick Henry there or something? Right? That doesn't make sense if you're not going to build out the Buffalo side of this. Sure, James Cook went. Oh no, boo-hoo. Take Khalil Shakir and Aaron Jones. Khalil Shakir, Josh Jacobs. Khalil Shakir, Justin Jefferson. Khalil Shakir, Jameson Williams. I don't care. Khalil Shakir, Devontae Smith. Right? That's just kind of what you have to do. There's just no way around it. Then he takes another NFC team. Doesn't make a lot of sense. He's got the Detroit side. Okay, cool. And that's about it. I don't know who his last pick was. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. It didn't show it, whatever. But what are you hoping? It's going to be a Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl? And then what? You have both quarterbacks, I guess, and then everything on the Detroit side? That just doesn't make sense unless he picked Dawson Knox here or something, or Mac Hollins. But even if he did, not exactly structurally sound. It does work where he has, an NFC. And let's say Detroit gets the number 1 seed, actually. Let's say Detroit gets the number 1 seed. I guess you have the advancement pieces. Okay, I guess you can do it. You're all right there. So then Detroit, Chargers, Detroit Steelers, and that's basically it. I can't really get behind this build, if I'm being honest. So it is what it is. Lamar Jackson, number 2. Justin Jefferson, perfectly fine with that. Zay Flowers, you got to do it. Good pick. It is what it is. Then Puka, Bateman, TJ Hawkinson. I really hope this guy got Justice Hill. And he did. Okay. Structurally sound. Good team. Makes sense. Except for Joe Mixon. That doesn't make sense there. Why Joe Mixon? You don't need the advancement piece. If you're picking Bucky Irving, right? I guess you are looking to advance. That is the thought process. I guarantee it on that one. But it is what it is. Jalen Hurts, James Cook, okay. Devontae Smith, don't mind that. Josh Jacobs, I probably would have went with Pacheco here if it were me. Keon Coleman, I like that. Dallas Goedert makes sense. See, there you go. If you go Pacheco instead of Jacobs, and then you get Hollywood Brown, there you go. Makes sense. He did take Kareem Hunt, so okay, you back it up, and then Jacobs is an advancement piece. I can get behind that. There's nothing wrong with this build here. That's okay. You got your Buffalo, Philly, Super Bowl. Should have reached for oh wow, did he not even get drafted? Kenny Gainwell. Wow, you should have picked Kenny Gainwell somewhere, probably over Dobbs. Definitely over Dobbs. Yeah. Or Nico. Either way. I'm okay, I suppose, with that one. Let's go with Barkley. So this is the Barkley side of this conversation, right? About why I think Derrick Henry is the pick over both Barkley and Gibbs. So he goes Barkley, AJ Brown. Okay, it is what it is. You got backed into it. And then Khalil Shakir, Cooper, and Kincaid. Yeah, you have 5 pieces for the Super Bowl, but only 4 are playing. So I guess you have 4. That only really makes sense if you're doing like the number 1 seeds, where you're just piecing it together, you're getting to the final. And then actually, if it happens, 4 pieces, if they're both the number 1 seeds, is actually probably a pretty strong team, if I'm being honest, because it's really hard to construct with both number 1 seeds to get a quarterback through and 4 other pieces. So I just can't particularly get behind that. And then Jordan Love, and then he goes with the Chargers side. Okay, so it's Chargers, Philly, and that's it. Can't really get behind that. Don't love the structure. At least you do have a Super Bowl final, I suppose, but reality is it's not quite there. Baltimore, KC, and they're going to play in the AFC Championship, so it's not the worst, I suppose. Derrick Henry, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Xavier Worthy, okay. Jaden Reed, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, Brian Robinson. Don't mind this at all. I don't mind it. This is a way you could go, because they don't play till the AFC Championship, the Ravens and the Chiefs. And then you've got 1, 2, 3 pieces on the Kansas City side. And then, I mean, it's realistically Washington. So you're going Washington, Kansas City, Super Bowl. Kansas City, Green Bay, but then you're missing a running back. Kansas City, Rams, but you're missing a running back, right? So couple of slight mistakes there. Nothing too crazy, I suppose. But and yeah, you do have a Super Bowl matchup, I guess. It's just not very optimal at all. So then going with what I did, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, obviously I was, banking on Jared Goff getting back to me. A lot of times he does in these situations, and I'm happy to kind of gamble on that. But he didn't. So I have to pivot, and I have to pivot quick. So Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, that's the way I'm going. The shitty thing about it is there's a good potential that they end up playing in the second round, but there's also pretty good potential they don't. it's pretty possible that that 6 seed upsets the 3 seed. So whether that's the Packers or the Commanders versus the Rams or the Bucks, I don't really care. The Commanders and the Packers will have a pretty good shot at upsetting whoever the 3 seed is. Whoever the 6 seed is will have a good opportunity to upset whoever the 3 seed is, right? And then if that's the case, the 6 seed plays the 1 seed, right? And then the Vikings play the Eagles, most likely, the 2 seed, right? So that would be the hope with this one. And then the Vikings and the Lions don't play to the NFC Championship, right? That's the perfect world. Then I had to bring it back with Kansas City because that was really all that was left. So it makes sense. I would rather have Buffalo or Baltimore, especially because I will have hopefully 2 players sitting out in the first round, right? Why do I say hopefully? Because I have one quarterback who's the other potential number 1 seed, right? Isaiah Likely and Nelson Aguilar. I have a running back on the NFC side, so I can do that and still fill out, my Super Bowl, right? Mike Evans is just an advanced piece. And it doesn't matter at this point, realistically, it doesn't matter if it's an AFC player or an NFC player. It's just an advanced piece. I only need 1 game out of them, right? So there you go. That's kind of what we're looking at. That's kind of what it's looking like. Yeah, there we go. Another comment, definitely Dennis. He played well in his last game without Hill. He rarely gets drafted and seems like a plus EV player. Yeah, again, like he's a leverage play for sure in the finals. If Baltimore makes the Super Bowl and you're in the finals and you have Keaton Mitchell, that's a massive leverage play for sure. That's kind of what I was getting at when we were talking about it earlier. Huge leverage play, right? I don't know if I'd say he played well, but he played and he got a lot of touches. That was also just an obscene blowout. So I think they were just trying to get him some run because he'd been injured all season, right? He hasn't gotten healthy yet. So maybe honestly with that outing, you could say that he's not really there. Does that mean he can get there by the Super Bowl? Fucking rights it does. That's weeks away. He can get there by the Super Bowl for sure. So realistically, he's a leverage play in any round if he gets a large touchdown or has a big outing, right? Which is not super duper likely. Again, obviously Derrick Henry is number 1 in that offense. It revolves around Derrick Henry a lot of ways. Besides Lamar, we're talking about the running back situation. And then Justice Hill will be back. He'll be back this week. I wouldn't be shocked if Keaton Mitchell gets a lot of run this week against the Browns as well, just to get him going, right? You got to get him back. You got to get him healthy. In my opinion, he probably is a better player. At least he has more experience in the NFL than Rasheen Ali, right? So I would rather he's on the roster than Rasheen Ali in the playoffs. You got Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and then Keaton Mitchell. So yeah, he's absolutely, I wouldn't say he's plus EV. I'd say he's a leverage play for sure in any round, but especially in the Super Bowl, if it works out that way. So yeah, again, like I said, in the draft that I did before this one, where I did have the Ravens and I didn't get either of those running backs, I probably should have taken Keaton Mitchell, if we're being honest. So that's a prime example. We're going to do one more draft. Joseph Profeta. Cash 5th place in BBM, my first year ever playing, $300K, just a soldier in the army. Appreciate your service, sir. LOL, I love best ball. Can never have gotten this kind of money another way. 100%. That's why we play, right? That's the dream right there. Congrats, by the way. Congrats, man. That's well done. Good on you. You deserve it. Well played. That's a huge score. So that's literally why we play this game, right? Is to get that huge big score. All you need is like one big win like that. And then you're pretty much set. Like you can max enter BBM for the next, 100 years or whatever it is, 10 years. I'm not very good with math, but you can play Best Ball Mania for the rest of your life, max entering, and you're probably still profitable, right? So congrats, well done. Another Amon Ra, and could have had that 1.5 million. Amon Ra shouldn't even been on the field. Neither should have Gibbs. Neither should have Goff. No one should have been on the field for for the Lions, but luckily for them, they escaped it unscathed and no injuries. So good for Dan Campbell, because he was really gambling with a lot of Lions fans' hearts on that one. But let's do one more draft, then we're going to get out of here. It's New Year's Eve, right? It's getting close for you guys on the East Coast. Happy New Year to everyone as well. I'll say it again before we go, but we'll do one more draft. I'll do a gauntlet. Let's do a little bit of a bigger one. Make it hurt a little bit. Waiting for two. If you want to join in the chat, jump in. As long as you don't snipe me on purpose for no good reason, just to, mess with the stream. But we'll do one more, make it a little more pricey. But we'll see. I always want to be. I mean, actually, I don't really care. It's just what happens before I pick is really all that matters in these drafts. And like I said, if I'm pick number 4, I'm picking Derrick Henry. So I kind of hope I get 4 in this one to show you why and how, you know what I mean? Instead of just kind of talking about it. But if I'm the number 1 pick or number 2 pick, it's set in stone. I'm taking Josh Allen. I'm taking Lamar Jackson. Even at the 3, I'm taking Jalen Hurts. There's no reason to overthink it. There's no reason to get cute. Just do what you got to do. Don't know if I don't really recognize any of these names, but if you're in the chat, what's your name, Joseph Profeta? What's your username? I don't know. Doesn't look like any of the ones in there are you, but let me know if you're in there. The 5th pick. Okay, cool. So right off the hop, it's still either Gibbs or Henry. Yeah. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to make that pick because there's one less. Tony Pro, looks like you're in there. Tony Pro 1994. You're pick number 4. So that's, hopefully you're not sniping me. Hopefully we're amicable. This is my dad's YouTube LOL. Took look at 5th place in BBM 5. I believe you, man. I don't think you'd be making it up. I 100% believe you. It's pretty easy for me to find out and call your bluff. So I'm pretty sure you're not lying. But yeah, let's see how this goes. So like I said, it's easier at the 5 spot to make that decision between running backs because there's only one pick, and I've seen guys take 2 quarterbacks, even though it makes 0 sense because they could both be the number 1 seed. But yeah, it's easier to make that decision at the 5 pick because you're almost, more or less guaranteed to get one of those 2 quarterbacks to come back to you. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry for sure. And again, here's kind of why, right? I won't be taking Patrick Mahomes regardless of anything. I'll tell you that right now. Regardless of anything that this guy does, I will not be taking Patrick Mahomes. So he should go Barkley Mahomes for sure. That's what I would do. He doesn't. Barkley St. Brown. Okay. So I'm going to go Justin Jefferson here. So Tony Pro, it's wide open for you to take either quarterback or push it. Obviously, you can do whatever you want to do. Takes Goff. Good start. It's a good start. And then I should be able to take Patrick Mahomes if I want. We'll see. We'll see if someone else wants to take a second quarterback. But I don't think I'll play it out like that. I might. We'll see. We'll see. I might have to. Will depend on what options are taken away from me, right? Let's look at the board. So Hurts takes James Cook. Okay. That's risky because both of these AFC quarterback drafters could take both of your wide receivers. So A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith could be gone. And that would be very unfortunate for the Jalen Hurts drafter. So there you go. He might take both of those wide receivers, and he does. If he doesn't, then the Lamar drafter could, right? So you kind of have to, in this case, you kind of have to take, like I said, you kind of just have to take those wide receivers. You just kind of have to. It is what it is. And he takes Aaron Jones. That's unfortunate. So that might be making my decision right there with what I have to do. Then he takes Khalil Shakir. I'm fine with that. Now these two are just going to play off each other. Patrick Mahomes and Goff. Hey, okay. I probably wouldn't have done that personally, because they could both be the number one seed, and then you don't have a quarterback, and you're not going to be able to advance out of the first round. Too busy yakking. I'll take Mark Andrews. And then Jordan Addison. So yeah, Tony, you might not have a quarterback in the first round. If Detroit ends up with the number one seed, then you don't have a quarterback. So either you're picking 3 quarterbacks, which is very, very not advisable, or you just hope that Detroit loses next week and they play in wildcard weekend. So I'll go Addison here. There we go. So what's this guy doing? Jameson, don't mind that. Makes sense. Barkley, Amon-Ra, Jacobs. So this is a mistake right here. 3 different NFC teams, right? I can't particularly get behind that. I mean, I guess I could if you shouldn't have gone KC then. You should go Chargers, Texans, Pittsburgh, something like that. I mean, I guess you could take this in this for the second round. But yeah. Trying to build stacks with an AFC and NFC team. I don't know if that's a strategy. Yeah, it is. You want a Super Bowl, right? If you missed a bunch of the episode, go back. There's a whole ton of information before I was drafting, and hopefully that'll help if you need a hand with some strategy stuff. Yeah, I forgot they might both be number one seed. Hopefully Vikings win. Yeah, so I'm playing a bit of both sides on that. Like sometimes I'm drafting solo Detroit, sometimes I'm drafting solo Vikings, and then just gambling on who's going to be the number one seed. But not typically in these $25 gauntlets. I'm not trying to light $25 on fire. If I'm lighting a $5 bill on fire, not the end of the world, right? So it's pretty obvious what I'm doing here. But what I might do is build this like the Vikings are going to get the number one seed. That's what I think I might do here. So I'm going to go Darnold here, obviously. And then Kincaid, if he doesn't get taken, which I don't know what this guy's doing. This is just a complete wild card, which is like he should go Nico and Mixon. But he goes Bateman for. So this is just a guy clicking buttons, not knowing at all what he's doing. You should probably watch the show, maybe give him a hand. Yeah, this is just zombie clicking. But if Detroit if they're playing wild card weekend, this guy's gonna have a good shot to advance, which is annoying. Kincaid. So I'm going to bring in Akers in this because I kind of have to. I don't really like it, but I have Derrick Henry, so I kind of have to. And then a Buffalo running back, probably Ty Johnson. So I'm playing this like the Minnesota Vikings get the number one seed, right? That's what I'm going to do. So I have to draft another quarterback, which is fine. It can be anyone. It's just an advance piece, right? So I have 1, 2, 3 players playing in wild card weekend right now. And hopefully this little talk through, Tony, hopefully that helps you out as well. You got to kind of talk through it while you're doing it as well. I could go with the Chiefs, but I really can't at the same time. Because I don't know what that guy's going to do. But he does have Washington, so I'm probably going to take Jane Daniels here. So let's take Jane Daniels. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 playing wildcard weekend. And I have 3 more picks, so I only need 1 more. I'm really hoping this guy does not take TJ Hawkinson. He shouldn't, because that's absolutely who I want, obviously. Maybe I just gamble. I think I got to gamble on this. Justice Hill. I'm gonna do that. It's a pretty big gamble, but we'll see. I'm gonna go Hawkinson and Akers. So I have 5 Vikings, right? So it's gonna be tough for this team to advance. If the Vikings get the number 1 seed. If they don't, I almost certainly will advance this team. But if they do get the number 1 seed, I'm still going to leave myself a door open with some good options. Jane Daniels versus the Rams, and Derrick Henry versus, let's say, the Chargers, hopefully. Mark Andrews versus the Chargers. Buffalo versus, who are they playing? Denver, probably. And then I have to go with, where is he? Akers and Ty Johnson is the way I have to go about this. I don't particularly love it, because then Ty Johnson has to play for this team in the wild card round. So I'm going to need something out of Ty Johnson. Not really advisable, but I'm taking a pretty big gamble that the Minnesota Vikings get the number 1 seed. If they don't, this team almost 100% advances, right? Like very, very, very likely this team does advance. But if they do get the number 1 seed, I still have an opportunity. Again, Jane Daniels should be a high scoring potential versus the Washington Commanders, versus the Rams, right? Derrick Henry's a great piece. Mark Andrews could get a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid's a good piece. It's really close. It's really close. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are 100% playing in the wild card round. And that's a pretty big gamble. Like, to be honest, those 5 players have to score for this team to advance. And I'm not going to lie, well, no, that doesn't really change anything. I was going to say this kind of slight mistake by Tony here. I was going to say it frees me up to do it, but it kind of doesn't, because I'm actually hoping Minnesota gets the number 1 seed. Unless I think I'm just going to Minnesota's going to go to the Super Bowl as the 5 seed, which is possible. Putt Daddy, Buffalo versus New England this week. Yeah, Buffalo's not going to be playing anybody. They're locked into the 2 seed. They're locked in 100%. This game means nothing to Buffalo. So they've already said Josh Allen might play like a series, which is smart. Like, get him out there, run around a little bit. If there's any sort of danger whatsoever, get him out of there. If anything should happen, get him out of there, right? But it's locked in. Buffalo's the number 2 seed. This game means nothing in week 18. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, if you're just joining the show, maybe go back, rewatch it 1.5 times. 1.25 is usually what I do when I'm watching shows back. Hopefully it gets you a little more info, right? But we're gonna leave it there. So yeah, long episode. Geez, hopefully it gives you some you guys got some good info. Again, it was more of a type of a beginner episode to just get people to understand structure and how that's all that matters. That's all that makes sense. That's all you need to do. Build Super Bowl matchups. Make sure you have at least 5 in the wild card round and at least 5 in the Super Bowl. Those are the 2 real rules. Yes, roster construction is 1, 2, and 3 means everything, but those are really the 2 real, honest, 100% set in stone rules. Make sure you have 5 players 100% playing in the wild card round so you can advance, and make sure you have 5 players playing in the Super Bowl so you have an opportunity to win the tournament if you get there. So that's it. We're going to leave it there for tonight. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you for coming out. If you don't mind, hit that like button on your way out. I really appreciate it. I will be doing a few more of these streams before the playoffs start for sure. Not tomorrow, but maybe the next day or day after. Definitely by Friday for sure. If I haven't streamed by Friday evening, there will be a stream on Friday, but probably Thursday or Friday for sure. Hit the notification bell. Appreciate you guys coming out. Like I always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be right. Hopefully tonight we were right and we ship a contest. Peace, guys. Have a happy New Year. Take care.